Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for joining us for another Rainforest Writing Retreat chat. Tonight we are speaking all things short stories and what makes a good short story and what we need to have in a story to tick all those boxes. And there's no one better to tell us about that than Pamela Jeffs, who is nominated for Aurealis Awards, like always, just always, for so many, and has several shortlisted stories and collections this year in the Aurealis Award. So we're all watching and hoping for her. And we are talking about her Terralight Collection, which is shortlisted for Aurealis Awards, and specifically Six Gun Reckoning, the first story in the book. And we're going to have a look at what makes it such a success. Why is this story working so well? And what are we missing, Pam? What are we missing on these stories that we need to imitate to be more like you? Pamela, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, well, I think I know pretty much everyone here, so I think most of you know me, but hi Debbie, hi Lauren, yeah, so I mainly write speculative short fiction, so a mashup of horror, fantasy and sci-fi, but science fiction is probably where I am the happiest. Six Gun Reckoning, this is the Terralight Collection. I don't know if that's coming up right. So that's the one that got shortlisted this year for an Aurealis Award. And it has another story in there as well that's been shortlisted, which is really exciting. Yeah, and I love writing short stories. So Charmaine and Chris have very kindly invited me here tonight to talk to you guys about my story and about Six Gun Reckoning and answer any questions that you guys have. So very happy to do that. Although I'm sure that there's quite some spectacular short story writers here already. I know Emma won an award recently, a competition, was
it? Yes.
Yeah, you did. I know that.
Thank you.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so that's really wonderful news. So I guess basically in terms of Six Gun Reckoning, has anyone, I know a couple of people have read it, but is anyone here not read it yet? Yeah, cool. All right, no worries. So basically it's a weird, wild Western. So the prompt for this story came out of an anthology call to write a story based on classic monsters. So I picked Van Helsing. And along with Van Helsing, I decided what better with the Wild West is than Billy the Kid. So I've got Billy the Kid and Van Helsing like joining forces to fight this mysterious monster that's terrorizing this Wild West town called Esperance. So children are dying. So Van Helsing turns up, but Van Helsing, what people don't know about Van Helsing is that he is actually a woman who's lost her children to someone who turned her husband into a vampire, and then her husband killed their daughter. So she's not happy. She's just decided to hide away from her grief and everything and become a protector of humanity. So she fights monsters. But in that day and age, you know, women weren't so recognized as monster hunters. So she took this new identity as Van Helsing. So this story is interesting because there's a couple of things. I did a bit of research about Billy the Kid. So in the story, it features Billy the Kid. It features his mother from real life, Catherine McCarty. And one of the children that have died is actually Joseph McCarty, who was Billy the Kid's brother in real life. So I did a bit of research on those guys. And I sort of took elements of that truth and wove them through the story. So that I feel like that's one of the things that you can add into your stories to make them a bit thicker, I guess, give them a few more details. And then the monster that they're hunting in the story is, her name's Grace O'Connor, but I actually drew that from an Irish legend of the vampire called the Durga Jew. So her history is that she was a girl who fell in love, but then her father was cruel and he sold her off basically married her off, to this terrible man who tortured her and locked her up in a tower, and she died from her, you know, sadness and loneliness and her injuries. And so they buried her, but she came back to life. So there's things about this myth, things like the Durga Jew has her husband had cut her arms. So in my story, that character has scars on her arms, and I foreshadow who she is because she's hiding in plain sight. I mentioned that the one of those characters has scars on her arm. So when like later on you actually find out who she is, you go, oh, that was a little detail that was foreshadowed, which was, you know, which was something I did on purpose. Yeah. So that's basically the story, and you find out what happens to Van Helsing and Billy the Kid if you read it. I won't ruin it for you, but yeah. I don't know. What else do you guys want to know?
Well, I'm just jotting some things down, Pamela, and I've noticed that when you said you used real life characters. Now, I did, of course, know who Billy the Kid was when you mentioned him in the story, and I know he is a real life character and I just love his storyline. He's such an interesting like time frame where you know we have the Wild West, but we start getting technology with cars are starting to come in and stuff that like, so the actual Billy the Kid has always fascinated me. I did not know who his mother was, or maybe I did previously and had forgotten. So reading this, I didn't have to know that Catherine McCarty was his mother.
Yeah.
But now that you've told me that, it makes me like the story even more. So there's like layers of the story that you can go into. You can use something just for fiction, and most of us just sit there and make everything up. But if you can draw in some real life, two things will happen. The people that do know who it is, they'll love that. They will just feel like they're on this inner circle and that they're part of it. And the people who don't, when they find out later, will also go, oh yeah, that's really cool. So I really like that real life thing. Has anyone got any comments they want to make about bringing real life into stories? Any examples?
I like real life in stories, but do your research.
Yeah.
Make sure Google is the right place to look, and make sure, because sometimes what you get on Google is not correct.
The other thing too is with a short story, you don't have to have like massive amounts of research. You don't even have to do research if you don't really want to, but if you do, it just does give you those extra little things that you can put in that, you know, on the first pass you won't get, but on the second pass you're like, oh, that's actually kind of cool.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I assume you've researched this character and you haven't put in everything you found out.
No.
You research it so that you can more or less just tip your hat to the character rather
Pretty
than,
much.
you know.
The other thing I like to do is I like to pull things like bits of details from all over and just kind of mash them together. So genre mashing is really like, I love to mash my genres together. So you know, you've got the Wild West. I've written science fiction stories that are set in the Wild West. I've written dragon stories that are set in the Wild West because I know it's not, you know, obviously my culture, but I'm just fascinated by that. You know, growing up, I watched so many Wild West movies that it's kind of fun to be able to use that setting, you know. Whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing, I don't know.
And do you think this mashing might be something that gives it a bit of a freshness as well, which might be something
all the reviews I've gotten from my stories and my collections, everyone's like, it's surprising. Like everyone always says they love the fact that there's a twist and that I take tropes and just kind of mash them together to create something different. A lot of I've had people say that some of the stories are surprising and that they've enjoyed that, like it's like a fresh take on things and it makes them unique. I can't tell you when I'm doing that or not. I think I just fluke it sometimes, but I do like doing it. And, you know, I don't think people should be afraid. Like I said, do your research, but don't be afraid to twist it, you know, and just make it your own, make it something different, make it fun. Because, you know, I guess speculative fiction readers they're well read. The people that do read this stuff, they read a lot of it. So it's just, so if you can give them something new, they're going to get excited about that. And, you know, and that's probably when you'll start getting shortlisted for awards because they're like, oh, that's really clever. Like I didn't see that coming, or, you know. And I guess the other thing too is you've kind of got to know your craft a little bit. So, you know, like you know, people say it all the time, like if you know what rules to break, then you can break them in a clever way and make it better. But you kind of got to know the rules first. And Yeah, I've written hundreds and hundreds of short stories. Not all of them have ever been published, but you learn a little bit as with each one. You learn how to write, you read other people's short stories and see how they do it. Things like how they structure it, like you can have your typical 3-act story or 1-act story, or I've read this awesome story, I think I sent it to you, Charmaine, about like the whole story is told in dialogue, and it's you read people's dialogue, but you're getting what's happening in the story through what they're saying, rather than going, this person did that, this person did that, which I thought was really clever.
I also think that you nailed that in this story.
Oh, thanks.
I really do. It's one of my comments on this, is that your dialogue is amazing, and it gives you more than what the dialogue is saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sets a scene almost, and you don't have to say that because it's in the dialogue.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I guess the next thing, and then I really like that when we said pulling in from real life, well, you've also pulled in sort of real life, but real life mythology when you talk about Grace O'Connor. You're pulling in now, not I'm not sure if you mean Grace O'Connor was an actual person, but I'm assuming you're talking about a legend of Grace O'Connor, which possibly originated vaguely from a real person, but on her becoming immortal because she was treated so badly by men. I really liked that. And when I read your story, I had a vibe that I was picking up on some older legend that I wasn't so familiar with. So again, you didn't have to know the legend to realize it was from a legend. So I think that was really good. That was done very well, because the other thing I'll say about these things that you've done them subtly. You haven't slapped people in the face with a lot of data and years, and this happened here and everybody knows this. You've woven it in a subtle way, like Easter eggs, so that people can find it if they know it. If they don't know it, doesn't make them feel alienated or like they do not understand your story. So I think that was really good. Do you often look at myths and legends to pull into your stories?
Sometimes. It just depends what I'm writing, I guess. Like this particular one was a specific call out for myths and legends, so I did make a point of looking for that. One of my other shortlisted short stories was Cards and Steel Hearts a few years ago, and that one was another weird Western, and I researched, I wanted my character to be a Native American girl, cross alien type thing, but so I looked at like all the Indian cultures and how women fought battles in that, and I looked into how the chieftains weren't always men, and the people running, some women grew up and they decided they wanted to be warriors, so they were given people that looked after their household, and they went off to fight with the men, like they were treated as equals. So I kind of pulled that information in, just like in terms of giving my character that strength. And then other subtle details, like what did the Native Americans eat? So things like pemmican and stuff like that. So I just mentioned that in the story, but it's real, I guess, because that's what they did eat. But it doesn't really matter to the story. It just gives it that extra layer of authenticity, I think.
Yeah, and I guess if we're looking for inspiration, regardless of, there's legends and myths for every culture, and we're not going to know them all, but we all do know some myths and legends that we could draw on. And you could even, start with a myth or legend and then reword it in such a way that's no longer recognizable as that original myth and legend, but it's given you your starting point or your bouncing off point that gives the story a little bit of, I don't know, it kind of gives your story a little bit of age. Like it's not just something I just created and here it is on the page. It's got a bit of history behind it, and it's been around for a while. So that's really good. Now, the next thing I will bring up that I took note of was you mentioned your twist. Now, you have many twists in the story, so it's not just one twist, but you do mention your initial twist of Van Heesling being a woman, which is a really good twist. I'm just trying to make sure my dog's trying to talk to you guys too at the moment. She's just making noise, so that doesn't come in. So we all know short stories, we know twists are important. when we're first taught writing short stories in school, we're really pretty much just taught to put a twist at the end. But we know now that there should be more twists. Is there too many? Can you get to too many twists? Is there a formula for twists? Do we need to start with a twist? Like, where's the sweet spots?
You need to start with well, for me, I think like you got to really establish in the beginning your conflicts, because they're the problems that you're going to solve in a short story. And I like to end on a twist, and I like it to be foreshadowed in the beginning. So something about the fact that I made Van Helsing a woman that had lost her child, that's the first conflict that you bring back at the end, because, you know, Catherine McCarty is protecting her child. So Van Helsing gets that, you know, and that's kind of like, I like doing those types of things. So, you know, again, maybe it's subtle. You're not going, okay, you're not making that direct connection, but as you know, but it brings it back around to a loop. I think if you can bring a short story back around to a loop at the end, the readers kind of get their aha moment at the end, and they're like, oh, I get that, you know. So yeah, I always try and start with a bang and end with a twist. That's the advice my mum gave me.
Yeah. And so your twist brings me to a bit of a theme that's in your story, and that is motherhood. Like, motherhood is a bit of a theme throughout the story, because I also found that your protagonist towards the end there is viewing Billy the kid in a motherly way as well, and starts to see some potential that she could parent this person by guiding them, and obviously that just makes the ending all the more poignant when it comes. So so how do you usually work with themes? Do you start with themes, or do you, after you've written a story, go back and think, well, how can I weave this so it all mirrors up?
I actually don't know how I do it. I think sometimes I've just got something to say, so I find a way to say it. I always know where my stories are going to end, so I'm able to, like, when I start it, I'm able to put in those things at the beginning that it's going to bring it back around to at the end. So I guess I do try and think of the message that I'm trying to say in my story. I always try and end it with a bit of hope at the end. So, you know, I guess at this one here, you know, like Van Helsing is killed in the end, but Billy the kid is a vampire. So what happens? Like, maybe Billy the kid decides to save Van Helsing and bite her and bring her back as a vampire. Like, you know, I just like to kind of leave it at the end so there's somewhere else that the reader can take it. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it does. And I realise that we are giving away a lot of spoilers about the story, but the fact is you can't analyse the story without talking.
Oh, that's okay.
And if anyone is thinking about grabbing the Terralight Collection, which is the name of this collection, there are many other stories in there that are just as good as this one. This is just the first story in the book, so we thought we'd talk about this one. I think actually the second one is one of my favourites.
Oh, Mirrorverse is brilliant.
Yeah, we won't spoil that one. So there you go, guys. So get the Terralight Collection.
That was awesome.
Will shake you a bit. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So I'm wondering now, is there anything our guests would like to ask Pamela? Anybody got any questions or comments, or if you want to just talk about something you've noticed in trends in stories? Anybody got anything they'd like to add other than my dog?
I gotta say the first sentence is brilliant. I mean, my true identity died long ago. That just opens it up and just makes you think of answers and questions on why, what, how come? And then you go into, I buried it with my husband turned vampire. It's like, oh, and then it just sort of opens up from there. And it's, you know, even if, what is that, 10 words or something, it tells you.
That's me jamming all the conflicts into the first three sentences. That's
how
you know, that's how you hook them, I guess.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Readers, you want them to get to the, you know, to the end of the first paragraph and go, oh, I want to read on. Like, what happens to this person, or why are these things happening? Yeah,
I agree. And I have to say that from reading through this, the sentence structure that you've used the whole way through is so descriptive, but not too, I don't know how to say it. It's descriptive. It gives you all the answers, but it doesn't give you the answers. Like, I felt like I was there. I felt like I was sitting right next to them, you know, and I think it takes a special person to be able to write like that, to make you feel in the story. And you did it, you nailed it. And I've read the Terralight Collection, and you've nailed it the whole way through.
Thank you. I think the trick is you got to understand that each reader is gonna, like, they're gonna visualize it their own way. So you just need to give them enough specific details to let them build the world. Like around the story. So you don't have to explain every single tiny minutia. You just need to give them enough to be able to create that movie in their head.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that's a thing, I think, that as you're saying, master your craft, is learning what to leave out and still be able to answer that question.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Yeah,
I think as writers too, like especially for short stories, like taking note of the details around us. Like if you see something, like, well, I'm kind of weird probably, but if I see something really beautiful, I think to myself, how would I describe that in a sentence? Like, you know, and you use that, like you tend, you know, you remember these things, and you use them all in your work. So I think that's really important, gathering descriptive details.
Lines. And I do that with movies. Sometimes you pick up something, you just go, oh my God, write that down. Yeah. And a good place to find character names is at the end of movies.
Oh, yeah.
That's my favorite place to find character names. Put some random names together.
I like Pinterest. I get lots of ideas off images from Pinterest as well. So
on the descriptions that Chris mentioned, one thing I will notice, especially about that story, is that you do give great descriptions, and there are times when we started coming through and we might see a person on the veranda and we just think it's just part of the scenery, even if we get a name, and then later we realize, oh no, that's significant, that's important to this. I like that everything that you gave us was important for the story. It came back into the story and it was relevant to the outcome of the story. So there was no just whiffle waffle of, oh yes, I'll just describe some scenery for a while, or I'll just describe a person standing there just so that you feel like there's people there. No, it actually is significant, and we see those people again.
But in saying that, you also gave the woman who was sitting on the veranda a reason to be there. So I read that and I thought, okay, she's the mother of the child that was missing, I think, or something. But then later on, we find out, well, she actually really is there for the story. And it's like a double go at it, if you know what I mean. I really like that.
I think that's like, especially in short stories, everything needs to be relevant. Like when I write a short story, I'll go back through and try and cut at least 100 words, because I'm certain there's 100 words you can cut out of pretty much every short story you write. So yeah, everything has to be relevant, because I think it's the prerogative of novels to waffle along and, you know, make everything really cool, but for short stories it's got to be really keen and sharp, and tight. Yeah,
I agree. I loved it. It was thought-provoking. It was something that Charmaine and I both read at the same time, and we like rang each other up and we're talking about it. It was like, oh my God, have you read this? Yes, I'm reading that right now.
Oh, thanks, guys.
I just, and I think that having the opportunity to talk to you, obviously, as Charmaine pointed out, because you've been outlined quite a few times, nominated for the Aurealis, which is amazing. And I know you're off
every time.
Well, you're off to the awards night, which is going to be absolutely fantastic when you win.
I hope so.
I'm
up against a few like amazing authors.
I know, but you're an amazing author.
You're amazing.
You're an amazing author too.
I'm just happy to be on the list, and like I said, I get surprised every single time. I told my husband, I'm like, there's no chance this year. I've had 4 years in a row. I've had a good run. This won't be the year. And then it came back with 3, and I was like, oh my goodness. Pretty excited.
As you said, and this is something that other people might not know, Charmaine and I had dinner with Pamela the other night, which is not what I want to talk about, but you were saying you write a short story, one a week. You write 52 short stories a year.
Yep, I try to, even if they're just like, flash fiction, like it's just to keep that writing muscle going, I guess. Yeah.
And I think that, as we were saying, I think that's how you master your craft. You learn your craft, but then you've got to take what you learn and master it. Yeah. It's okay to do 50 million classes and master classes and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But if you can't put it into practice or you're not quite getting it, redo it.
But it's still a good idea to do master classes. Like
I agree.
Like a Rainforest Writing Retreat or something like that.
What I'm saying is you've got to
Pamela Jeffs.
Well,
yes, actually.
The first time when I came to my first Rainforest Writers Retreat, I hadn't never published anything, not even one story. So that's how far I've come now. But the other thing that was really helpful for me too is like submitting to anthology calls and magazines and stuff like that, because you get the opportunity to work with editors, which, obviously you don't have to pay for if you're getting accepted. They do it for you. Some are better than others, obviously, but there's two amazing ones in this group that I can see here.
Lauren and Jenny.
But yeah, so having that opportunity to be able to work with different styles of editors, number one, it gives you networking opportunities because they get to know you and you get to know them, which is really good. And secondly, you learn at least one thing in each story. Like I was like devastated when I found out about filter words, things like I hear, I see, I feel, because it completely changed the way I wrote. I write much better now because of it, but I'm like, it took me forever. I'm like, I never even knew that. So
for a gift for anyone who views this who may be new to short story writing, do you want to explain what a filter word is and why it's a problem?
A filter word is something that separates you from I guess the action. I don't know how to explain it properly, but things like I see somebody walking down the road, I feel the wind on my face. So you might, instead of saying I see someone walking down the road, just say they walked down the road. It's much more immediate, and it makes your writing tighter, so the pacing is faster, and it doesn't make the reader trip over what the character's doing, because it puts you in their heads more than they don't need to tell you what they're doing, I guess.
Yeah,
they can just say that they're doing it. Does that make sense?
That was excellent.
I don't know how to explain it, but
someone will go away from watching this and go, oh, I didn't realize that. So I think that's a great explanation. If you tell us about a sound, then we know your character can hear it. You don't have to tell us I heard. We know you can hear it because you just told us what the sound was. So yes, it's just like buffer between you and the thing happening. So that's a brilliant explanation. I think that's great. So guys, we're going to be wrapping it up in a second. So I just want to check if anyone has any last minute things that they did want to ask Pamela about, whether it's about submitting or stories or Aurealis or anything like that before we wind up. So last call, speak up.
I have a question, actually. Are you a pantser or a plotter, Pamela?
I am a little bit of both. So with longer short stories, I do try and plot out what's going to happen. But with the shorter ones where, there's less to lose, I guess, as long as I know where I'm going, if I know what I want in the end, I can kind of waffle my way through until I get there. But it takes longer in the end because you've got to go back and you've got to tighten it and edit it and stuff like that. But yeah, a mixture of both. Longer stories, I definitely make the effort because it's too much time to waste sitting there waffling along. But it's going to change anyway. As you go along, you get better ideas and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to change that now. So yeah.
I have a question, Pamela. How do you feel about time jumps in short stories?
I think that they are fine as long as it's very clearly delineated. So for me, how I would structure something like that would be, I'd literally say this time, and then when the time changed, I would say that time, and then as it changed back, I'd say that time, because you don't really have a lot of room in a short story, so you kind of have to put it out like just very clearly. So I've written a few stories before where I've had two different protagonists, which is weird in a short story, but I've literally named each section. So I've gone, like, Joe, and then I'll say Joe's point of view, because I'd like to write the first point of view a lot, which most of my stories are. And then the next one will be Pete, and then Joe, Pete. So it's just, like I said, you don't have a lot of room to move, so you just need to make it really clear for your reader.
What about flashbacks?
Sorry?
What about flashbacks?
I think it just depends on the story. Like if it works for the story and there's a reason for it, I don't think that would be a problem. But it just really depends on your story and the reason for your flashback. Like if you've got a clever reason to put it in there. So, if putting those flashbacks in brings something really clever in at the end for a twist, then sure, go ahead,
Yeah. I only asked because I heard somebody recently say, don't put time jumps in short stories. There's not enough room. And I thought, oh, I've done that on occasion. So
you can do whatever you
not
want.
do that. But so it's good to hear that, yeah, you have done that.
Yeah, no, you can. I think you can do whatever you want as long as you're doing it, really for a reason. Not just for the fact that you think it's cool, but if there's an actual reason in the story for it and it works, then yeah, do whatever works. I think that's my advice.
What about the resolution at the end? Do you think you always need one? Because I see short stories sometimes that just leave it hanging and it's really annoying for me.
Yeah, I think, like I said before, I think you've got to, for me, I think that the ending should be able to let the reader go on to draw their own conclusions, or you want to leave them wanting more. So maybe not like a definitive resolution, but I think you do need to bring it back around so it's satisfying. Like if you leave it hanging, yeah, that's annoying. You're just like, oh, that was,
It's a waste of a few thousand words.
Yeah, that's it. So I think, well, for me, look, other people are probably different, but for me, I always try and leave it hanging, but leave it in a position where the reader can go on and decide what's going to happen, whether it does or it doesn't. Yeah.
I think in Terralight you nailed it. You said, like Catherine Ames, the barrel is set between my eyes and the crack of the shot before darkness falls, roars thunderous. That's an ending. I mean, that tells you that they got shot. But like you said, Billy the kid could probably jump in and bite her and turn her into a vampire. And I never thought of that, to be honest. But yeah, so it does end, but you can.
She just doesn't die.
Yeah, right.
It's between your eyes, but
would she kill her? I wonder if she would kill herself if she became a vampire, because that's the thing she hated the most. How interesting is that?
I reckon she'd survive. I reckon Van Helsing's a pretty tough lady. I don't think she'd let that stop her. I think she'd just still kick ass, fight monsters.
And do a Blade or whatever it's called. What's that movie where the vampire kills the vampires? Yeah.
Any more questions before we go? Because we will be winding it up. Everyone's welcome to hang back and chat, but we'll wind up the recording part. I'd just like to remind everyone that Pamela is actually doing a short story workshop with the very talented editor and writer Lauren Daniels, who's with us tonight. Wave, Lauren, so everyone knows who you are. So if you're coming along to the retreat this year, you'll actually be able to do a little bit more of an intense workshop with these talented writers. We'll call it a night for now. Thanks everyone for coming along. As I say, you're welcome to hang around for a bit and chat if you'd like. And thank you so much, Pamela, for coming along and sharing some of that, because as I've said, if you're watching this, there will be something that you got out of this, even if it's one little thing that you think, I might go back and have a look at that. I think that's very valuable to learn from other writers, how they're succeeding in what they do. So thank you for your generosity, Pamela, and for being
welcome anytime.
And I'll just say everyone know Pamela's been really sick lately, and she did a great job because you wouldn't know it. As always, you always look lovely, and you
over my COVID
sound very professional. So well done. All right, guys, I'll say goodnight to the people watching from home. We'll post out next time we have a chat. You're always welcome to join us. Thanks. Bye, guys.